WTBQ. And I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you are listening to Leading Ladies, a women's talk show that features relatable, intelligent, compassionate, powerful, productive women of the 21st century. And I do have my first guest in the station with me today, Miss Susan Metzger. She is was a local biologist who is here to talk about her experience working in the sciences. And she is here with me right now. Welcome, Susan, and thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, thank you very much, Katie. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. Yeah, no problem. So we'll just get started then. Susan, you recently retired, but as this is, a women's work show, I do want to talk about what you were doing prior to that.
Actually, I retired in 2005.
Okay.
So I've been retired quite a long time. When I retired because it was time. I was an owner in an engineering and environmental science firm called Lawler, Metzger and Skelly Engineers. And we did work primarily in water topics.
Okay.
My background is biology. My partner's backgrounds were all engineering.
Okay.
So I did the science with my people,
Right.
and they did the engineering. Our clients included Port Authority of New York, Army Corps of Engineers. We designed remediation techniques. We designed wetlands,
Wow.
power plant intakes, that kind of thing.
Okay, very cool. Well, it sounds like a good combination. You have some science and you have some engineering, you put them together, some good work can be done, right?
Well, some problems can be solved, hopefully.
For
That
sure,
was the goal.
for sure. And how do you feel, throughout your work? Did you see, some rewards, some improvements? What kind of things did you
I definitely
succeed?
saw things improving in the environment, which was great.
Right.
Part of it came from the understanding of the general population that we needed to make those improvements, so
Right.
that was a big support. I've also seen an increase in women in science and engineering.
Well, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get to that. So, just before we get to that topic specifically, I want to talk about why you personally, felt gravitated toward the sciences. What first made you want to go, into this field?
It was my greatest interest in school. I have a kind of odd background because my high school, although it was a public high school, was all girls.
Okay.
So I had some formidable science teachers
Right.
who I looked up to and who were successful in science.
Right.
So I didn't see it as a problem for me to get into it. I also went to an all-girls college, and my first co-ed experience was graduate school. So
Okay. Wow. Do you think that, had you not been at an all-girls school and had you not had those those teachers or those role models, that you might not have felt, as inclined to go down that route?
I can't say that because I really loved the
Okay.
sciences.
Right.
I was lucky to have good role models, but I think I would have ended up in the sciences anyway.
One way or another, right?
Yeah,
Well, that's
way
great
or
to hear.
another.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, you were kind of just talking about the environment and how important it is to, keep an eye on it and be wary of what's going on. Can you kind of talk about conservation a little bit, what that means to you, and how you've come to, value your environment and what's going on within it?
Let me take it in a different direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And let's talk about the environment of the village of Warwick,
Perfect.
okay?
Yes.
Now, you and I were chatting earlier, and I had a bear in my front
Yes,
yard.
we had
and
been
I
just
live
talking
in the
about
village.
that. Right.
But the other thing that's characteristic of the village is the green space that we have.
Right.
Lewis Park and some of the wonderful historic buildings that are maintained by the Historical Society. Environment is more than just the fish that I studied, the bears, or anything else. It's the human environment. And when the general population respects its human environment, I think that's when we make real strides.
Okay. I understand. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. So can you kind of, elaborate on that? How do you mean the human environment?
The environment that we build.
Right.
Are we building a sustainable community to live in or not?
Right.
And we always have to ask the question, do we live in sustainable homes?
Right. So how we're interacting with our environment
Yes,
basically is what you're saying.
definitely.
Okay, makes sense. Absolutely. And that's something that, you obviously encourage through your work and through your time. And that's something that you might, hope people would see and understand and grasp and use in their own life, right?
I think the people that I like to be with do that.
Right.
There are many people who don't, but I think we're making strides.
Definitely. That's great to hear. So why should people care? And how
Because
are
we live here.
impacted, right?
This is our home. If we don't take care of it, no one else will.
Absolutely.
It's that simple to me.
It's very true. Very true. I think it's important not to take it for granted because, we're given all this wonderful opportunity and we might not have it if we don't, take a minute to look around every once in a while.
That's true.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we can give up our technology.
Okay.
Anybody involved in the sciences is very heavily tech-oriented.
Right.
And in another life, I'm on the board of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Okay.
So I deal with trains all the time.
Right.
And that's an important element as well because it helps move people in a more sustainable way.
Definitely.
Rather than all of our cars.
Definitely. So there has to be some sort of balance is what you're saying then, right? Definitely. That makes sense. So just shifting gears a little bit here, again, you said you owned a firm with several engineers
Yes.
who were all men, right?
Definitely.
And so you were in that group of people, the only female working for this firm.
Well, I wasn't the only female working for the firm. I was the only owner initially.
Right.
And I was also the only PhD biologist.
Okay.
So, I had something to provide that was important that they
Right.
needed help with.
You were valuable.
It
Right.
works.
Right, definitely. Can you kind of talk about your experience as a female, and as, a PhD biologist, the only one in that group, working together with, these 7 other engineers who are men?
Well, first let me say that my partners were always supportive,
Right.
and they were all married to very strong, independent women, which helped me a lot.
It's great to hear, right?
Yeah. I think it was interesting in that it was unexpected for our clients to come in and find a woman as part of the ownership.
Okay.
Not all of them, but it was. And you have to understand this goes back a number of years, so I think today is a little bit more accepting of women in the
course, right.
sciences.
Right. But at one point, people would come in and see you and be shocked to see you as an owner there.
I don't know if they were shocked, but definitely surprised because it wasn't a traditional role.
Right.
And, also it's sometimes hard for me to separate out being the only biologist. We ended
Right.
up with a huge staff of other biologists, including women, and other women who served as engineers. So, it might have started small, but it ended up with a lot of people involved.
Okay. And a lot more women involved.
A lot more women involved.
Right. That's great to hear. Is that something that has been significantly, increasing throughout your years working there? You said you started seeing more women in the sciences, and I think it's a general known fact that women are lacking in science representation in the science field. So
I think it's getting better, and in the engineering field as well.
right.
And I think my road to it was through advanced education,
Okay.
not because I thought that was a road, but because that's where my interest was.
Right.
And then with that education, I had other opportunities open up to me.
Right. Of course. And so, do you see more women, taking their education more seriously and therefore
Yes,
finding themselves
definitely.
in these careers?
Yes, and I see more women expressing interest in science.
Right.
And I think some of the former barriers are down. The
Absolutely.
people don't not expect women to do things now,
Right.
which is good.
That's great. We
Yeah,
love
it is
hearing
good.
that. Absolutely. Well, don't go anywhere, everyone, because I'm going to continue my conversation with Susan shortly after a commercial break. So stay tuned. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you've been listening to Leading Ladies right here on WTBQ Radio.
All right now.
Hi, this is Dr. Calvin Hargis, and as you may know, I have 2 specialties. As a board-certified neurofeedback specialist, I use neurofeedback therapy to normalize brain function associated with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and many other conditions. As a board-certified chiropractic orthopedist, I treat musculoskeletal pain. Did you know that most people with chronic pain never get better? Scoliosis treatment in this country could be enormously improved if doctors understood that most scoliotic curves are due to a short leg or an unlevel pelvis, and that most scoliosis begin as simple curves to balance the spine on an unlevel base. Radiologists do not comment on leg length differences, or that most orthopedic doctors do not attempt to correct these imbalances with corrective lifts. If you have chronic pain, a child diagnosed with scoliosis, or want to know more about neurofeedback therapy, I invite you to give us a call at 845-986-5500.
State Farm in the Clock Tower on Main Street in Warwick. One stop for all your business and personal insurance and financial services. Life, home, auto, disability, or business insurance, as well as banking and retirement planning. Call 986-7100 or come in and meet the team.
The Blarney Station, located at 10 Railroad Avenue in the historic downtown village of Warwick, features an authentic Irish menu as well as many American favorites. The food is always fresh and professionally prepared by the Blarney Station's experienced chefs. Add to this a casual bar where you can get your favorite refreshments and meet good friends. You have the perfect place to relax and dine. And here's the owner of the Blarney Station, John O'Connell, to tell you more.
Yes, the Blarney Station is open 7 days a week. Our phone number is 845-986-1509. That's 845-986-1509. Eat in or take out. You're sure to enjoy your meal. And don't forget that we have a children's menu too. The Blarney Station, directly across from the Railroad Green at 10 Railroad Avenue in Warwick.
Hi, I'm Pat O'Dwyer. Join me on the Friday Roundtable for a provocative look at politics and the people in our Hudson Valley community on the Friday Roundtable at 9 a.m. on WTBQ.
Hi, this is Marina Case of the Red Shutters in Warwick, New York. Tune in every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. for The Style Show, a show about decorating, fashion, and fun on WTBQ, radio worth listening to.
WTBQ. Ain't I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
We are back. This is your Leading Ladies host, Katie Krahulik, speaking right here on WTBQ. And I'm here with Susan Metzger. We had been talking about Susan's experience working for our community, and we were talking about women in the sciences. And on that note, I just want to, because we had discussed how, you know, it's been known that women are lacking in the field. And Susan was saying how she's finding that that's not so much the case anymore. She's finding more women in the field. But I am curious, why do you think that women tend to, you know, steer away from the sciences, or we're not finding as many women in those areas?
I think in large part because it hasn't been a traditional role for women. I sometimes feel that women are steered in other directions, and I believe that some women are not really interested in science, just like some men aren't interested in other things.
Right.
So we all follow our niche, but if we don't have a role model and a path, you don't end up there.
Right, absolutely.
And the advantage of having very good female professors was a thing for me.
Of course.
I could see them being successful, and so didn't seem like I couldn't be.
Exactly. So then you saw yourself being successful, because if they could do it, then why can't you?
Exactly.
Right.
But to be honest with you, I saw men being successful, and if they can be successful, so can I.
I mean, it's just about people being successful. I think that's the real point here. Of course, absolutely. And that's, you know, wonderful to hear, and something that I hope a lot of people can, you know, can take and run with. And again, that's the point of this show right here. You know, you see women in fields that you think that you might be interested in. And I hope that young women will look at you guys and say, or you girls, I should say, and say, wow, okay, well, you know, if they can do it, then I can do it too. Because I completely agree that role models, you know, are extremely important.
But women also have an obligation to be that role model. You know,
Absolutely.
As I got older, I realized that I needed to bring people into my firm who I could help be successful, be it male or female.
Absolutely.
And you learn to be a good role model not only for women, but also for men, which is
Right.
a little bit harder sometimes.
For sure, for sure. But definitely the case today, you know?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
For sure.
When I started graduate school, there were other females in science, but it was clearly a minority.
Right.
And, you know, now I look at all the young women that I speak to. My grandchildren are entering college now, and
Right.
they don't feel that they can't be a good scientist.
Right.
In fact, one of my granddaughters just graduated, and her field that she's thinking of is marine biology. So I'm very happy to
Fantastic.
hear that.
That's great to hear. How exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Bria Metzger.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know her.
Of course you do.
Oh, she's lovely. Oh, great, great, great. Definitely. So I completely agree with you there. And again, that is why I'm doing the show. So I do want to kind of talk about, just backtracking a little bit to your experience working, as a part-time owner of the firm with these other men. And you, like you said, sometimes it takes a step up to be able to be that role model for other people. And you obviously, you took that step and you were that role model and you stepped up to the plate.
Well, I hope so.
Oh,
you,
for
you
sure.
don't know, but you hope.
Oh, I'm positive. So I want to talk about a little bit that gender disparity a little bit. How did you make up for it? Because, clearly stepping up to the plate like this isn't easy,
Well, I think part of it is that I didn't feel that it was going to stop me. I learned very young that some people were going to be prejudiced and that's an illogical prejudice,
Right,
and
of
that
course.
talking logic to them isn't going to change it.
Right.
I just had to find another way to do what I wanted to do.
Right.
And usually that way would appear. I had some very good male role models. My senior partner was terrific,
Okay.
and that was helpful as well because you learn how to deal with office politics,
Right,
you know,
right.
academic politics.
Definitely.
So that's always helpful.
Right. Do you remember any specific scenarios or circumstances when, your gender became relevant to your work or might have, hindered, somehow your
Yeah.
ability to perform or something of that nature?
Well, I spent a lot of my early days on boats all
Okay.
day long with men
Right.
and no ladies' room.
Okay.
So that was a gender issue,
Definitely.
but one that you just figure out. I think that my sons, because I only had sons, once said to me, well, moms don't work. I was like, hello, what about your mom?
Yeah, right.
And they said, well,
Wow.
you're different. And I said,
Wow.
no, I'm not different. You have to get over that. So that wasn't my work, but it was my work.
Right.
Because they thought that what I was doing was different than what women usually did.
Right.
And that shouldn't be the case. I think there were times when my partners gave me jobs that they felt needed a woman's touch.
Okay.
Telling somebody something difficult.
Okay.
I took a number of courses after I got my doctorate because I was just a curious person. And some of that involved risk communication and public administration. At the same time, I went through a course that was offered through a professional society that I was working with on how to communicate risk. And the gentleman said, when you stand up in front of an audience, women are more trusted than men, but men are more believable than women because they have an authority about them. And I thought to myself, well, how can I make that my thing?
Right,
How can
right.
I not lose the trust that this guy seems to think women elicit, but
Right.
gain the authority?
Right.
And that was an interesting thing for me to hear. I don't know that I agree with it.
Very
but-
much so, right. It is interesting. One thing I also kind of wanted to touch upon that you were talking about before is I think it's extremely interesting how even though your sons had a mother who was working, they still have this, this stigma or this idea that
Well,
women don't work.
They grew up at a time when
Right.
television women didn't work.
Right.
You know, there were always stay-at-home moms, so they had imbibed that. A lot of their friends had moms that stayed home.
Right.
I understand it culturally. I just wanted to smack them,
Right.
you know? Hello.
Right. Wow.
But I think that the surrounding culture is very, very important, and you can't change it right away,
For sure.
but you can modify it by calling people out when they say something that you know is just not right.
Oh, definitely. And that's, exactly what we're trying to do right here. And hopefully today, your sons wouldn't say to you, "Oh, Mom."
Oh, never, no. No, in fact, now
learn
they
their
want their
lesson?
own daughters to
Right.
to excel.
Right, absolutely. And that's fantastic to hear.
I had a dad who pushed me as well.
Okay.
I think that helps.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Parents for the win. I can understand that. My mom is obviously, she's a family court judge, so she has 2 full-time jobs as a mother and a judge. So she's always encouraged me to get a career and support myself. So
Yeah, my mom did the same for me.
Right.
You know, you should have a career. You should be able to support yourself.
Right.
You should do what you want to do
Exactly.
and follow your heart.
Exactly. That's all there is to it. Most definitely.
But it's hard.
For sure. It's very hard. It's very hard to be able to make a living out of what you love to do.
Yes.
But you've managed to do it, which is wonderful to see. And, now that you have retired, I kind of want to talk about the things you're doing now, within the community. Can you kind of talk about some of the...
Well, before I retired, I got involved with various community things. Like I served on the Warwick School Board many
Right.
years ago. I presently serve on the board of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I represent Orange County, which is an interesting experience because we only get a quarter vote, and we are the smallest of the counties,
Right.
and we are the least served of the counties. So it's very important that we have a very strong voice,
Definitely.
even if we don't have a whole vote.
Of course.
That I've enjoyed doing. I'm on the Historical Society board, which is important to me because I care about my local environment and my
Right.
local community. I've also chaired the County Planning Board for about 10 years,
Okay.
and that's in a transition mode, so I have a replacement part coming on board, and I'm very
Okay.
happy about that because I
Nice.
think transition is good.
For sure.
All these things are just an extension of a life.
Right.
They're
Right.
all important. They're all ways to give back and do things,
Definitely.
and they're all experiences.
Absolutely.
Every experience you have leads you to your next one. You just have to
Exactly.
follow the heart
Definitely.
and walk through those doors.
Do you feel like your career kind of led you to these other options?
Definitely.
Right.
Working in the New York City waterfront on environmental issues, I had to understand transit, and I had to understand trains more from the freight perspective than
Right.
from a commuter's perspective. So that led to that interest. Planning is always part of any environmental project because you
Right.
have to set it up and plan it to be executed properly.
Right.
So planning was a big part of it. I think that all my professional background, having a PhD in biology doesn't make you a shoe-in for the Metropolitan Transportation
Right,
Authority.
right.
But the experiences that I had post-education made it very easy for me.
Definitely.
Learning to communicate risk, that's helpful.
Right.
It's all helpful.
Right. Absolutely. And you clearly have a lot under your belt that you're able to use, with all these different things.
But I also belong to a very important organization, the Orange and Duchess Garden Club,
Oh, yes.
which I love and which a number of ladies in the Warwick area belong to. And what we try to do is build beautiful gardens, like the 1810 garden in the middle of
Okay.
the village,
Very
behind the
nice.
1810 house.
Wow. And you make it a great place to live and to
Yeah, yeah.
enjoy. Extremely, extremely important. So thank you for all the work you do.
Well, you're very welcome.
Just on a final note, I kind of want to get a little advice from you for young women who do want to go into the sciences, who are interested in becoming a biologist or, a chemist, something of that nature. What would you tell them, today?
get an education. Be educated in your field, because the sciences are so fast.
Right.
They change so quickly
Right.
that it's really important to stay educated. And even after you've finished your degree, keep
Right.
working at it.
Keep
because standing still is falling behind.
Right. For sure. Definitely. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming in today to speak with me. I commend you on all you've achieved. And
Well, thank you, Katie.
No problem. You deserve a big thanks as such a dedicated community member. So
Well, thank you.
No problem. Stay tuned, listeners, because I have another great guest coming in to speak with us today. You won't want to miss her. This has been Katie Krahulik, and you're listening to Leading Ladies here on WTBQ Radio.
All right now.
Dental Arts of Orange County is the perfect blend of a spa with high-tech dentistry, all in one classic and stylish office right on Main Street in the Village of Florida. Choose Dental Arts of Orange County whether you are in need of regular dentistry, cosmetic dental options such as Invisalign to enhance your smile and your self-confidence, or you just want to turn back the hands or the face of time with cosmetic treatments such as Botox and Juvederm. Call now for a complimentary consultation at 651-4647. With over 26 years of experience and ongoing advanced training in technology, Dr. Batafalvi is the only dentist for you and your entire family for all your needs. The Spa and Dental Arts of Orange County is the place everyone is talking about for state-of-the-art advancements in both dentistry and cosmetic treatments. Call now for a complimentary consultation at 845-651-4647 and visit their offices at 14 North Main Street in the Village of Florida.
The fastest road course racing in NASCAR is just around the corner at Watkins Glen International in the heart of New York's wine country, August 4th through the 7th. Be there for 3 days of action-packed events. The debut of a new surface at a historic track. The action begins Friday with the Bully Hill 100 K&N Pro Series. Saturday, it's the NASCAR Xfinity Series Zippo 200. It all leads up to Sunday's Cheez-It 355 at the Glen. For tickets, call 866-461-RACE or visit theglen.com.
Have a problem with your computer? Need an upgrade or a boost to your computer speed? The Computer Guy offers sales, service, and repair at competitive rates for your business or home. The Computer Guy builds servers and workstations, sets up secure wireless connections, transfers data, including system installation, remote access, and backup of your daily files. Trust the Computer Guy by calling 845-988-0708 or visit them at 14 West Street in Warwick.
Hi, this is Dr. David Leach, the superintendent of the Warwick Valley Central School District and host of Your Schools. Listen every Monday at 12 noon to learn what's happening in your schools right here on WTBQ, radio worth listening to.
Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy Sturr inviting you to join me every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock for polka music. We've got 60 minutes of good, exciting polka music on Polka Session. Join us Sunday mornings, 11 o'clock, right here on WTBQ AM or 93.5 FM.
WTBQ. And I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
We are back. Hello and welcome to those who just tuned in. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you're listening to Leading Ladies, a women's talk show that features relatable, intelligent, compassionate, powerful, productive women of the 21st century. And I just want to introduce my second guest today. Her name is Annmarie Slagle Cloutier. Did I get that right? Yes. And thank you so much for taking the time to come speak with me today, Annmarie.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So could you just tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and where you're working right now?
Okay, so I'm a clinical pharmacist, and I've worked in many places, but moved back to Warwick, where I had grown up, and purchased Ready Pharmacy from the former owner. He was over in Merchant Square, and changed the name to Apple Valley Pharmacy per our buyer's agreement.
Okay.
And now we just bought a building on West Street in the Village.
Right.
And moved. We've been there about 6 weeks. We're really loving it. So basically, I treat patients in a retail pharmacy setting, providing outpatient clinical care.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep.
Wow, so that's big. That's a lot going on. So this is more recent endeavor. So when did you buy the first place?
The business 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yep.
And you had been working out of Merchant Square.
Yes, we had a 5-year lease.
Okay.
That was just up in June. So it has been my goal, as a business owner, to own my own building.
Right.
Obviously, that would just make a lot more sense.
Right.
Rather than paying rent. It's just a better investment and
sure.
something we can kind of put our stamp on and do what we want with.
Right.
So finding property in Warwick that has parking and is, level to the ground and
all of
visible, it was very hard. It took years. I mean, we've been looking for 3 years. So
Wow.
we found this building, and the other pharmacist that works with me actually saw it and said, I've been walking by and there's a for sale sign. If you don't buy it, I'm buying it. So, it took a long time to refinance our current mortgage for the business to include the building and get all that done and then go in front of the village board. We had to get approval to change it from a hair salon to a pharmacy, which took a few months.
Right.
So, all of that kind of happens, but we're loving it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You've been successful these past 6 weeks. Okay, great. I work for the Dispatch. I write a little bit, and I cover the village board meetings. So I know, how long these processes are and how long it takes to get these things done.
Right.
And even, such simple things, such minor things will take quite a bit of time because you have to get it approved, et cetera.
Right.
So I'm sure it was quite a process. But
and I didn't know that. I mean, I've done a lot of the things I've done in my career are just, I had no experience before this.
Right,
so.
right. Well, it's
fun.
great that you're finally all settled in and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna go way back and start with the beginning. What first made you decide to go into pharmaceuticals in this career path?
It's funny. I graduated Warwick High School, and I was very into English, honors English.
Oh, wow.
I was the editor of the high school newspaper.
What?
Like super.
I love hearing
I
that.
thought that I wanted to be a journalism major.
Oh, wow.
But when I looked at the time for career opportunities,
Right.
I was really scared, thinking my
Right.
parents are going to spend all this money, and what if I don't get a job?
Right.
So I also liked law. Thought
Okay.
about being a lawyer. Loved that aspect of it. But again, the market was like flooded with lawyers at the time.
Right.
So I thought, what can I do? I loved English and writing and being creative, but I also loved science.
Okay.
It's kind of an odd combo. Usually, like you're math and science,
Right.
or you're
Or
English
you're
and
one or
history.
the other. Right.
But I kind of liked both. So my junior year, our chemistry class, the teacher asked us to write a report on careers in chemistry.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, pharmacy, like I never thought of that. I thought maybe like physical therapy or other, things that
right.
you see on TV that look exciting, like emergency, like ER was the show
Right,
that,
right, yeah.
But I didn't really, I wanted to help people, but I don't necessarily want to touch you.
Okay.
It sounds kind of weird. Like
No,
we
it
vaccinate
doesn't.
and I do things like that, but I don't want
Right.
to. I don't want to deal with like feet
You want to open
and
any
openings.
intestines,
No.
Right. Okay.
So I thought, how can I, incorporate this? And I
Right.
also thought it was really cool at the time that there were not a lot of women in pharmacy.
Okay.
So I said, rather than do the nursing route where it's all women,
Right.
I'm going to do something different. So I kind of thought pharmacy or engineering was kind of where I was going to go.
Very cool.
I applied to 8 different colleges, dividing it up between pharmacy and engineering.
Okay.
And I ended up going to Northeastern University in Boston, and I loved it.
Right.
Like I can't stop raving about the school.
Great.
So I did the pharmacy program there, and I never looked back.
Right.
It's great.
That's amazing.
Like people
Wow.
don't think that pharmacy can be creative, but it can.
Okay.
So
how can it be creative?
well, one of our specialties at Apple Valley Pharmacy is compounding,
Okay.
which all medications before big pharma like came into the U.S. in the 50s and 60s, everything was made from scratch from
Right,
chemicals.
right.
So you kind of, you have more flexibility of designing a medication specific for someone. So we work with a lot of physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs,
Right.
to come up with a form of medication that suits an animal, a little kid, an elderly person. It doesn't
Okay.
matter who you are.
Wow.
If you have allergies to something, if you need it made in a specific form, we can do it. If we need a dose
Wow.
that's not commercially available.
Right.
So it's kind of made a resurgence. And it's sort of like cooking.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it. But
Interesting.
baking. So
Okay.
there, cooking, you can be really creative and you can just a dash of this, a dash
Right,
of that.
some arugula,
Baking is very
right.
specific, as is compounding.
Okay.
So Patty, the other pharmacist that I work with, she likes to cook.
Okay.
So she's like, all right, I like this, but it's so precise.
Right.
Where I'm a baker. So
Right. There you go.
it's great. And I love, finding a solution for someone when they thought there was no hope.
Yeah, that's
in
incredible.
some situations,
That's
it's kinda
incredible.
neat.
That must be
Yeah.
extremely rewarding as
Yeah.
well. For
Yeah, I
sure.
like it.
Wow. I think it's interesting how you're kind of putting that combination together.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, it's really innovative, really.
Right. And I mean, owning your own business, I was trained to be a pharmacist. I didn't have an MBA or any business experience. So I'm learning
Right.
that as I go,
Right.
making sure I have, good advisors and people that help me.
Wow, right.
But when you're a small business owner, you're doing everything yourself.
Exactly.
So you're learning a little bit of marketing, a little bit of advertising, sales.
Right.
It's kind of all, you're kind of in charge of all of it.
Right, but
so
it's all good.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you're a pharmacist that also likes to do those things, it's great.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because you're allowed to, you need to.
Because you have interests in other aspects. So when you put it all together,
and community outreach, you can do different events like Ladies' Night and the expo for the community that they hold every year. Certain things like that. So you can really show people what you do, and it's fun.
That's fantastic. And you said you were interested in the communications as well, the journalism. So of course that all comes into play. With advertising, et cetera. So,
and it also being any health provider that interacts with patients, you have to be able to talk to people.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't be shy.
Absolutely. And being a business owner as well.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it all comes into play. Well, that's fantastic. And, kudos to you for doing it. And I do kind of want to talk about, because you said, you were interested in this career because there weren't a lot of women doing it. So is that something that you have been running into, you've been finding throughout your work?
Now it's equal to probably, I would say it's 50-50 now, guys and girls that are graduating from pharmacy schools. But, I went to school in Boston.
Okay.
Then I stayed there. I lived there for 12 years. And I worked at Mass General and Brigham and Women's and other hospitals.
Right.
Phenomenal Harvard Medical School teaching hospitals where you saw diseases that no one in the world had. You know what I mean? It was so amazing. Every day was challenging and awesome.
Right.
But I moved back to Warwick for family reasons, and it's just it's not as saturated for different demographics.
Right.
So finding things that I can feel like I can make a difference to our community, or offering services that maybe other pharmacies don't, is what really drives me.
Okay.
Otherwise, I feel like the job would be boring.
Right, definitely. Did you feel like there was a need for this in Warwick?
Absolutely.
And can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we're probably one of the only compounding pharmacies for miles. I think the closest one maybe will be Central Valley, but there's not that many, and there's not that many people. A lot of people say they do it, but they're not trained. I'm really obsessed with education.
Right.
I'm constantly reading, learning, doing.
Right.
Just as your other guest had said, you have your formal college degree, and that's great as a foundation, but you're always needing to build on that.
Of course, because every time,
and especially with medication, the drugs change daily.
Right.
There's always something new coming out, and indications for dosing that change, that you have to be on top of it.
Of course.
So we spend a lot of time in our pharmacy getting new training and certifications and licenses to make sure that we're doing everything correctly in the best way we can.
Right, definitely. Yeah. That's fantastic. And like you said, people would say, we're not trained in compounding, but you are trained in compounding.
That's the one thing I would tell people. You can Google compounding pharmacies, and you can get all these wacky online places.
Right, I'm sure.
You really kind of have to know where you're going, because this is medicine that's critical for you.
Absolutely.
You don't want to just put something in your body that you don't know where it came from.
Right, of course. But you guys are obviously very trustworthy and reliable when it comes to that, so that's fantastic that you can provide that for people. And then you said you also do a little bit of veterinary work.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we love it. It's definitely a huge part of our business, because we've treated animals like ferrets, guinea pigs, turtles. You name it. We've pretty much your horses, and they need things that the dosing is not available at all times, or the drug may have been discontinued on the vet side, but we can still get the chemical.
Okay.
So it's great.
So it's kind of the same process then for people and animals. You just try and figure out what it is that is going to make assuage that problem basically, and fix things. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah. And people love their pets.
Right, of course. Pets are family, for sure.
So.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm just curious, what exactly about health interests you the most? You said you like to help people, but this is kind of like another level of helping people.
Well, what I find is so great about being a pharmacist is you get to know the person. You see them a lot more than they see their physician.
Right.
And you see their family members and their kids and their friends, and you kind of get to know their lifestyle, which makes a difference. Not everyone is going to disclose that to their physician or even think about it.
Right.
So we get to see that, and we get to see that and really help their whole family, their whole life, their whole being. They're not just going to the doctor to treat a wart. We're seeing the whole picture. Right. So it's great that we can do that.
I'm sure it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, well, we're going to take a very short break. We will be back right after this I'm going to continue my conversation with Annmarie. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you're listening to Leading Ladies here on WTBQ Radio.
The Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center is dedicated to enriching your life through the presentation of the finest local, national, and international artistic performances, and by providing education and community involvement programs that support, enhance, and expand the appreciation for the arts. Come and experience great concerts, plays, and performances just minutes away from home at the Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center. To find out about upcoming events for your entire family, visit sugarloafpack.org or call the box office at 845-610-5900.
Turn the pages back to another time at Ye Old Warwick Bookshop. Enter and you'll feel the comforting environment of what bookstores once were. Ye Old Warwick Bookshop is a place to come browse, feel, smell, and simply enjoy a good book. In the presence of a wealth of knowledge and stories, you're warmly invited to open the books that will transport you to other worlds and times. At Ye Old Warwick Bookshop, you'll find everything from new releases to rare old books. Whether you're looking for fiction or nonfiction, it's all there at Ye Old Warwick Bookshop, 31 Main Street in the heart of the village of Warwick. Call 544-7183. And remember, that great book you just read on your Kindle, you can't pass it along to family or a good friend. Ye Old Warwick Bookshop, where pages really do turn.
Hi, I'm Steve Bellner, professional real estate photographer. With over 90% of home buyers searching the internet for properties, professional photos are essential for a successful online marketing campaign. In fact, houses listed with professional photos sell quicker and for more money. Please call me at 845-244-1660 or visit my website, qualityrealestatephotography.com. Sold is just a click away.
This is Sister Anna. Listen to The Garden of the Child, a story discussion time with students. Story develops listening skills and imagination. Saturdays at 11:10 a.m. on WTBQ.
Hi, it's Paul Ruskevich, Barry Cheney, and John Vero,
Orange County legislators on the Thursday morning roundtable, 9 to 10 a.m.
answering all of your questions and concerns on WTBQ, radio worth listening to.
WTBQ. Ain't I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
Welcome back. I'm Katie Krahulik, hosting Leading Ladies here on WTBQ. Annmarie Slagle Cloutier, yes, is here at the station with me, and we had been discussing her career and affiliation in the Hudson Valley. So I'm trying to get the last name right. I think I'm 2 for 2 so far. Yep. Okay, great. And we were just talking about health in general and what why you're interested in it in particular.
Yes, I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, that's that's
even
great.
my own personal self. So. I just feel like you only get one shot at this in life, right? And you have one body, and you need to take care of it.
For sure.
And I've seen people like my own father. He is, a mess right now because he smoked for so many years. And when you don't know that something is going to hurt you and you do it, I get it. But when you do know, why wouldn't you stop it?
Right.
So, a lot of times I was saying before how you see your physician for just certain ailments, but they don't get the whole picture.
Right, of course.
We try to, really dive in and build relationships with our customers so that we can help them.
Right.
And, sometimes they'll say, well, just quit smoking, throw on a patch, do this. It's not always easy for people.
Of course.
What if you're like an overnight truck driver and that's like the thing that keeps you awake?
Right,
or, we try to do, give them alternatives for things and work together. Sometimes we'll call the physician or whatever, and we'll talk about what the patient said to us.
Right.
And then we can come up with a better solution together.
Absolutely.
So it's good.
Because how many times I'm sure have patients heard do this or that. They probably could find that on the internet if they really want to find a solution, but they're here looking for some serious answers.
Right.
And that's something that
and we have time. I mean, people can just walk in without an appointment and talk to us.
Okay, that's great.
So that's the other thing people like about pharmacy in general.
Right.
Is you don't need to make an appointment.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Even for we do flu shots coming up, you can just walk in.
Right.
So it makes
walk
it
in and just get a flu shot. That's fantastic, and it's so important because this stuff sometimes is critical.
Right.
Absolutely. And going off of that note, of course, health is extremely important to you.
Yes.
But when it comes to encouraging it and instilling it among other people, How is that? You know, can you talk about the value of that in your life?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I was trying to say before, I mean, I take really good care of myself. I eat really well. I exercise. I try to be an example.
Right.
I mean, yeah, sometimes I just say the heck with it and I'll go to Belleville Creamery and have a sundae.
No, I think that's healthy
you need
once
to
in a
have
while.
Everything
in moderation. Right.
But I feel like people do listen, and I am credible because I do it myself.
Right.
I think if you're a 300-pound smoker and you're not exuding a healthy lifestyle and you're trying to tell people what to do, it's preaching.
Right.
So, you know, and a lot of times people need to do a lot of things. They do need to quit smoking, or they need to, you know, change their diet and lose weight. And that's a lot to handle all at once.
For sure. Right.
So take it in steps.
Right.
Do the best you can. Take it one day at a time.
And that's, you know, the advice you give people mostly. Right.
Because, I mean, even with medication or supplements, a lot of people want to know, oh, you know, I want to take a supplement for this. That's great. But if your diet is horrible,
right,
then it doesn't really matter what supplements you take because you're not going to do anything.
Right.
So, you know, and I'm a real huge proponent of eating versus supplements. Not that supplements in some form, some of them are necessary.
Right.
But if you can get your nutrients from food, then that's the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, you focus a lot on lifestyle.
Yes.
A lot of people,
Which people think is weird.
Right. I think pharmacy, and I think, you know, you give me the stuff, right?
No,
and
you don't always need the stuff.
Yeah.
Or
okay.
if you do need the stuff, you need to know how to make it the most effective or the best time to take it or what foods to avoid with it. You know, if you take certain antibiotics with certain dairy products, it inactivates them. So you've just basically done nothing.
Right.
You know,
right.
or it could make you sensitive to the sun. So if you're going to Mexico for the week, you may need to know that.
Right, right.
Or if you can't drink alcohol with your antibiotic and you're going to a wedding tomorrow night, that's going to be a problem.
right, definitely.
So, you know, that's where
right.
it's interesting.
I feel like a lot of, you know, these scenarios you're talking about is kind of the situation where life gets in the way. You know?
Absolutely.
Like, I think a lot of times the answer seems so obvious. Yeah. But the reality of the situation is that it's not practical, right?
Right.
Is that something that you come to find?
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
we try to make things easy and convenient. So we offer, like I said, so we do vaccinations, we do compounding for animals and humans. We do pill packaging. So if it's a person, whether it be young or old, it doesn't matter your age. If you travel a lot or you just can't remember to take all your medications, we can package them for you.
Right.
So that it's a no-brainer. We offer free delivery. You can request your refills via an app on your phone, on the website.
Wow,
you can call.
Great.
I mean, it does. You can stop in. It doesn't matter.
Right.
We just try to make it as easy as possible. We are constantly outreaching to people. So if we have to order a drug, it's saving you a trip. Don't come right back. Come back tomorrow because we'll have it. We don't want people. The people that come to us, if they're sick, are already in a bad mood.
Right.
right. We don't want to make their experience with healthcare even worse.
Right.
So it's a lot of hand holding and it's a lot of touch points with a person, but that's how you build rapport.
Absolutely. So, it doesn't sound easy, you know, I'm sure it's a lot, especially with, you know, this big move and
definitely.
And being a woman and being, you know, a business owner.
And that's funny that you said that because you were saying, you know, how is it being a woman in healthcare? And I was trying to say in Boston, it has been, I mean, they're like 10 to 15 years ahead of this area in terms of what they do.
Right,
so,
of course.
You know, at least. So it was I never felt kind of put upon as a girl, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when I opened the pharmacy here, I took over ownership. People were like, well, where's the pharmacist? Expecting a man.
Wow.
And it's like, guys, it's 2007. I don't know. I was shocked.
Really?
But, you know, I don't know. I also typically, I don't wear a lab coat. I'll either wear my name badge or I don't, I guess, look typical.
Right.
I'm more relaxed about it because I want people to feel comfortable.
Of course.
A lot of times patients get nervous when they see the lab coat and
and all
stuffy.
the official stuff, right.
And also it's physical. We're there for 10 to 12 hours at a time and you're running around, so you have to be comfortable.
Right, definitely.
So I'm not wearing a 3-piece suit. You know what I mean? I don't look like a lawyer.
Right.
But, you know, so that was kind of strange. And even now, like people will come in to sell me a product or a service and they want the man.
Wow.
You know, it's strange.
Wow, that's very strange. So that is something that you run into.
I just say, you know, I'm sorry, I'm the pharmacist.
Right. Yeah. Sorry to break it to you. Here I am.
Right.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of curious about, you know, your accountability when patients come in, when you know you have people come in looking, you know, for your service,
right?
And they see you as a female, you know, as a young female,
right.
And you know, again, as a pharmacist, as a business owner, there's so many different aspects here that I think might not make a lot of sense to some people. So when they come in and you're treating them, do you ever get, you know, any reactions from patients or,
Absolutely.
Or do they get nervous, right?
It depends on the issue. I mean, if it's a female-related issue or an issue with a child or pet, they kind of gravitate toward the female, I feel like. But if a man has an erectile dysfunction issue or something really... Some guys, they'll come... I mean, I've had guys come in and say, my doctor gave me samples for Viagra, Levitra, and Cialis. I tried them all, and this one's the best. And it's like, oh... They're not embarrassed at all.
Right.
Because it's all over TV and media. I mean,
Right,
I
of
guess.
course.
But then you have some people that are like, I don't feel comfortable. Like,
Right.
we have a male technician, and women will call in for female-related things, and they don't even want to say it to him.
Right.
And he's like, it's not a big deal. It's
Yeah.
part of your body. I don't
Yeah.
judge. I don't,
Of
So
course,
there's
right.
definitely some people are more comfortable.
Right, definitely. For sure.
I mean, it's, you just hope that they'll give you a chance, and the more that you can prove to them that you're doing the right thing and that their health is in your best interest.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And you've been open for 5 years now,
Yes.
so I'm sure, that trust and that reliability in you has improved greatly. Right. Are you finding that you're making, more of an impact in the community as far as reputation goes?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm sure you are. Yeah. And, people coming in and hearing about you, I'm sure they're a little bit more, trusting in your ability and your reputation, et cetera. So.
And definitely, even when I hire people, I'm always looking for individuals that genuinely care.
Right.
It's not just a job. You have to look at it as a passion. So that's one thing I could say to anyone that may consider going into any field.
Right.
18-year-old or 17-year-old senior in high school.
Right.
Find what you're going to be passionate about.
Right.
And don't always think that if you're, like, say, for example, you're going to be a pharmacist, people think, oh, you only work at CVS or you only work in a hospital. That's not the case at all.
Right.
I've worked for pharmaceutical industry. I've done education at college level. There's so many things you can do.
Of course, right.
It's, don't feel like it's too narrow.
Definitely.
And look for programs and schools that offer opportunities to work in your field.
Right. Internships.
Critical. That's what I loved about Northeastern. They had
Right.
co-ops, and as of a second year student, you were working in your field.
That's great.
So you can also find out maybe it's not for you.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But at least
That's the best
you're
thing to find
earlier
out.
in your
Right.
college career that you can change your major maybe
Right.
or tweak it around.
Definitely,
There's nothing wrong with admitting that something isn't for you.
Right, for sure. And you were just talking about passion and how important it is. Clearly, you are extremely passionate about what you're doing, which is great to hear and great to see, and must be such a relief for people coming in, to get better, for your service. They must, see that and think, okay, great, this person really cares. Especially when you were talking about your interest in lifestyle. This isn't just about, giving them something that they're going to go home with and they're going to figure it out for themselves.
Right.
You want it to be, a life changer, right?
Yes.
Not just a day changer. Yeah. So that's fantastic.
And even if they only had, a course of antibiotic for something, and they really they're not on a lot of medications, I still want people to know that they can come into us at any time and ask us anything.
Right.
It doesn't matter, even if you're not filling a prescription.
Definitely.
We're just a resource.
Which is fantastic. We're kind of running towards the end here, but just on a final note, I kind of want to get from you, I'm curious as to, it sounds like you kind of figured it out, I'm sure not flawlessly, but you realized, that the career path you wanted wasn't exactly the one that you ended up choosing, obviously. Right. So can you kind of talk about something that you wish you'd known sooner when you were first starting college, when you were 18, 19, 20, and you were kind of figuring things out? What do you wish you knew at the time?
I wish I had gone, when I went into college, Northeastern is a massive university. Like our, it's very big and very overwhelming. I wish I had kind of latched on to maybe an older student or a guidance counselor that could have been more of a mentor.
Okay.
Because professionally, that makes a huge difference.
Definitely.
But you don't think of that in college. And
Right.
I think that definitely can help.
Definitely. Okay, fantastic. Great to know for young people.
Yeah.
Of course, those are questions I'm curious in
Sure.
hearing. Anyway, so that's it for today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be right back here next week. This is Leading Ladies. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you're listening to WTBQ Radio.